Can you see it?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, so we just want to read with Paul the prayer that was done for the synod, for this synod. So we will read it. Lord Jesus, in journeying toward the synod, your church turned her attention to all the young people of the world.
We pray that they might boldly take charge of their lives, aim for the most beautiful and profound things of life, and always keep their hearts unencumbered.
Accompanied by wise and generous guides, help them respond to the call you make to each of them, to realize a proper plan of life and achieve happiness.
Keep their hearts open to dreaming great dreams and make them concerned for the good of others.
Like the beloved disciple, may they stand at the foot of the cross to receive your mother as a gift from you.
May they be witnesses to your resurrection and be aware that you are at their side as they joyously proclaim you as Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Florence. I want to leave just some seconds of silence. Welcome to people who are just reaching us, and there are people from England, there are people from Germany, there are people from different parts of the world, so welcome. This is one of the goals of our webinar, to let people meet from different parts of the world, from different congregations, men and women together. So welcome to all. The theme of our webinar is accompanying young generations in the vocational discernment towards the Synod on Young People in 2018. I will ask Florence just to introduce our first speaker that is brand new, because in the other webinar was not present, but we are very happy to have him here because he's really an expert. Now he lives in Rome, but he lived in the United States, where he comes from, and he worked very well on this theme. So thank you, Florence, to introduce our first speaker.
So Paul is a brother of Holy Cross. He has been Vocation Director of his province in US and Formation Director, and has served several terms on the Provincial Council. Then he has been Executive Director of the National Religious Vocation Conference, and just to explain, it's 900 members in 15 countries. He served also as a consultant for the US Bishop Committee on Clergy, Consecrate Life and Vocation. Father Paul has published several articles on vocation ministry. In addition to his retreat work, he has been invited to give workshops in vocation ministry throughout North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Last year, he was elected first General Assistant and Vicar General of his congregation. So now he's living in Rome and he's with us today.
Thank you, Sister Florence.
While Paul prepares his presentation, I want just to, I'm very sorry that we had to change the platform, but you can ask questions in the chat, and you can also talk, but let's see if we have enough time to do it, because we have half hour of, we are in late, so I'm very sorry. So now Paul will share his part of his presentation for 15 minutes, and then we have a short time for questions and answers. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia, as well as Sister Florence. It is a delight to be here, and I appreciate the invitation very much. In 2008, we began a major study on recent vocations to religious life, and this was done in collaboration with the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate at Georgetown University. And the reason why we did this is because we did not have any hard data about vocations to religious life. We have plenty of anecdotal evidence, but we did not necessarily have any numbers to back that up. So I need to say at the onset that this major study, which was no study of this magnitude on religious life, on vocations to religious life, was ever done before in the United States, but it is focused solely on the United States, and I just need to say that. But one thing that I have found is that the results crosses borders. I have given this, the results of the study in England as well as in Ireland, Australia, and there are lots of similarities, and I hope you will see some of that within your own cultural context. I do want to just give a brief design of the study. That there were 4 parts to it. There was a survey to all major superiors of religious institutes and societies of apostolic life, and we received a 66% response rate, which was extraordinary, and it represents 80% of the men and women religious in the United States. We also surveyed every member who took final vows or who entered religious life within the past 15 years. And we identified about 4,000 new members, and we received in return 1,568 usable responses, which is a 40% response rate. We also sponsored 3 focus groups of young religious to further flesh out their responses. And then we did 8 on-site visits to religious institutes who seemed to be having some success in attracting and retaining new members. For our purposes this afternoon, I'm just going to focus on 3 aspects of the study. But if you do want more information about this, the complete study as well as the executive summary is located at the NRDC website, which you see on the screen. If you were to go to the website and just click on studies, if you were to download the complete study, please know that it is over 400 pages. So I tell you that before you press print. But you may just want to review the executive summary. There are 3 aspects I will deal with this afternoon, which is what were the responses of our newer religious about what attracts them to religious life, what are some of the characteristics of the communities who are receiving new member religious said there was a common experience of call, that they truly felt called by God. 95% said that it was a personal experience for them, and this personal experience could have been as a result of a retreat, being at a youth rally, or a personal tragedy in their life that forced them to reflect upon their own spiritual lives. And in that, they discovered God's call, a similar experience. The difference was negligible. All sense of call. Again, slightly more women in religious life at a later age than men. Oftentimes,
I don't get that. But the sound they go, they come.
Yes, even somebody may comment just now. Oh, they breathe.
I'm sorry. Scusate? Third aspect of what attracted people, it's definitely a desire lightly. And this really is a shift in thinking. Can you hear me here now?
No. So
I can't hear anybody.
it's freezing. So
Now it's okay, Paul. We can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. All right, Patrizia, you can hear? Okay. Basically, what I was saying is that this concept of coming for service, I think if you look at our senior members, they came to religious life at a time in the church when if you wanted to do service, you had to be a religious. But if you notice with the younger members, they're coming primarily for that sense of deepening their spirituality, but service as being a part of that. They're also...
No, it's okay, it's okay.
Okay, they are also coming to be part of a community. 89% rated community as one of their primary attractions. But we need to keep in mind that they are doing ministry already. About 70% of our surveyed newer religious were already involved in some form of ministry. But what they're finding is they need the support of a community to continue in that ministry. And then finally, there is this desire to be more committed to the church. This was rated by about 74% of our survey participants, to deepen their relationship with the Catholic Church. And we found that the millennial generation rated this aspect much more highly than, say, the previous generation. If we start looking at what types of religious institutes attract members, if I were to put it within a composite, it would be a community that has a strong Catholic identity. When I'm speaking of Catholic identity, that goes beyond the religious habit. As much as the habit is an iconic Catholic symbol, it's really about how we pray as a community. It is where we live, as well as the type of ministries that we do. There is a very strong desire with the newer entrants for daily Mass, to pray the Liturgy of the Hours, which was particularly important for them. And this was even more so with the millennial generation. It is living in a house that is identified by people as a home where religious live, a house that has religious imageries. It is also involved in their ministries, that they are doing ministry within a Catholic institution, and preferably an institution that is sponsored by their religious congregations. Now, this raises a lot of questions for religious congregations, primarily because there aren't these large houses anymore. And many times where our younger people are coming with a more traditional prayer style, are people of, say, the older generation open to praying with them in a way with which they are comfortable. Another aspect is those communities that are hopeful about their future. And I think this only makes sense when we start reflecting that nobody wants to cast their lot with a group of people who would be either angry or cynical or pessimistic. If a young person's going to give their life to a group and to a community, they're going to give, they want that support, a community that is hopeful for the future and has a sense of zeal, which gives them energy. They say they have a great hope for the future of religious life despite the diminishment in its number, and that they believe that the Spirit is alive and will create something new. They are willing to participate in that, and they want others to believe in that with them. Another aspect or characteristics of communities would be those communities who live and work together in community. Interestingly, what we found with the younger members, that they prefer much more to live in a larger community of 8 or more people, or in medium-sized communities of 4 to 7 people. Again, this presents a challenge when we don't have the same real estate any longer that can accommodate these large groups. But they want to live with people in their own community. The findings of our research does show that there is a negative correlation when the majority of the members live alone in a congregation and with attracting new membership. In other words, if your majority live alone, it's going to be a challenge to attract new members, especially because the new members are looking to live and work with people together. And they also want to work within a sponsored ministry of the congregation. To know, it gives them a sense that they are connected to something greater and that they are connected with the mission and charism of their congregation. There is also another aspect, which is that one that they would have a structured prayer life. That one that would have a strong Catholic prayer life in the sense of the liturgy of the hours, but where prayer is certainly a priority. This is especially true with people who are coming from different cultures, say with a more traditional Catholic practice. Can they find a home with us? And can they be comfortable in their prayer style with the community prayer style? And especially when we look at young people who really are looking for structure in their life. Many of us have already internalized the value of prayer, but they need those structures in order to enable them to learn how to internalize those values, whether it be common prayer retreats, Eucharistic adoration, common rosary, teaching them about our strong Catholic tradition in spirituality. At that point, I would certainly open this up for questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm seeing the no, Alan, there is no ladies' voices guiding the PowerPoint, so I'm sorry, perhaps you have some problem with your computer or the connection. I'm very sorry for the problem we had, so I feel embraced about that. You know, I invite you to write some questions on the chat, or if you want to say something, you can ask the floor on the chat, because otherwise we can ask Sister Nathalie to continue, and then you can ask later. So, Alana, I hope you can solve your problem with the... Okay, I have a question, Paul. Thank you, Silvana. Do you think the desire for lots, etc., is partly because that is the only way these younger people have learned for prayer?
A desire for...
Silvana,
Do you think
you can read in the chat.
I don't understand what LOTH is.
The liturgy of the hours, I get.
Oh, the liturgy of, okay, you think the desire for the liturgy of the hours is again, it is I think for young people, that liturgy of the hours is the prayer of the church. And the entire church prays those same psalms together. And for a younger person to know that they may be praying these psalms in Rome, and that there are people like themselves who are praying in Australia, Asia, and Africa, those same psalms, it keeps them globally connected. And they find that a pretty cool tradition, in the sense that they're not just praying with their own local community, but they are praying with the universal church.
Thank you, Paul. There's another question from Canada. These findings would certainly resonate with my experience of young people here in Toronto. Sister Jill. Thank you, Sister Jill. Okay.
And I would just say that in Canada, they're doing a similar study like this now. So they will have research, I think, within probably another year or so.
Okay.
But they're basing it on our study.
Thank you very much, Paul. But he will continue, so don't worry. Now I would like to ask Sister Nathalie, that I will share the screen, Nathalie, with you, so you can share your presentation. Thank you, Florence. You can introduce Sister Nathalie.
Yes, Sister Nathalie is a Xavier sister. She's French. She has been working with the Scout in France, and then she was chaplain for several universities in the south of Paris. Today, she's the national director of the Youth Evangelization and of the Vocations service at the Bishop Conference of France. She's also in charge of the pastoral for the student on a national level. She's a spiritual director as well, passionate of social network, digital culture, new generation, especially for the 15 to 30 years. She has given many conferences, and she has written a lot of books on new media and evangelization, or evangelization of young people by internet, or on vocation ministry.
Thank you, Nathalie, and thank you, Florence. We have other questions, but don't worry, we will ask our speakers later. I just want to underline that you will receive the presentation, both presentation and PowerPoint, so don't worry. Okay, thank you, Nathalie. You can start. Nathalie, we can't hear you. Nathalie?
Okay.
Perfect.
You can hear me now?
Very well.
And you can see my PowerPoint?
That's right.
Okay, so hello everybody. Very happy to be with you online from all over the world. I apologize for my bad English because I am not English native, but I will try to share some reflection with you about accompanying young people in vocational discernment. I will focus especially on the preparation of the next synod about youth, faith, and vocational discernment, because one of the main topics for the church today is how to evangelize and to accompany young people in a changing world. You know, I like this quote from Pope Francis, who says, "This is not an age of change, but a change of age." So we have to update our pastoral vocation and many things to continue to reach a new generation. In the exhortation, The Joy of the Gospel, there is a part about youth ministry and another one about vocation ministry. And Pope Francis says that youth ministry as traditionally organized, has also suffered the impact of social changes. So we, as adults, that's the first step to accompany young people. We have to listen carefully and patiently to young people, to appreciate their concerns and demands, and to speak to them in their languages, in their new languages, so that they can understand. And their languages today are language with images, with video, with music. They are no longer in a written culture, but they are now in a screen culture. And so I think that Pope Francis gave us this great gift of a synod about youth, faith, and vocational discernment, to help the church to be and to spread the gospel in this world now, because the young people are the first who are changing the world. So the next synod has two aims. One is a reflection about youth accompaniment and how to help youth to... Is it okay for everybody?
Yes, very good.
Okay, I can continue. This preparation of the synod is a way to help the church to change, as listening to the youth and as listening to the Spirit who is leading the youth, and to ask the youth to spread the gospel. The main perspective, and I think it's very important for us in consecrated life and religious life, is to consider the youth not as a passive object or only people who have to learn from older, but to consider the youth as protagonists and to work, to walk with them, and to consider them as active subject, not only people who receive from others. And that's a key for today for our pastoral. And this synod has a clearly vocational objective, because when you hear to the young today, it's very difficult for them to make strong choices, because there are so many things, so many possibilities in our world, and it's not easy to choose, because there are so many ways. We are in a globalized world. And I think that the answer for the challenging of youth evangelization, and also for maybe for vocation pastoral care, is synodality. You know, Pope Francis focused a lot on the necessity of developing synodality. That means journeying together, laity, pastors, and the Bishop of Rome, and especially to work together with the youth. A synodal church is a listening church, and we have to develop in our way of doing, not only listening to the young, but to give them some responsibilities, to help them to be actors and to be co-actors with us. And sometimes in our way of doing in accompaniment, we just want to lead the youth. And I think accompaniment is an exchange. We give them something, they need spiritual guide, and they need to look at people who are older than them. But we as adults, we also have to receive from the youth, because the Holy Spirit is also guiding the youth. So I think it's very helpful not only to prepare and to speak about youth and vocation discernment, but to develop in our communities, in our church, the path of synodality which God expects of the church of the third millennium. And so I will just focus on the 3 steps, the preparatory document for Synod explain us. I think it's a very good document, and I hope you can read it. Maybe you have already read it, but I want to present this document. So the aim of when we are dealing with young people, the aim for us is to lead young people to recognize and accept the call to the fullness of life and love, and to accompany young people to guide the formation of their conscience is to lead them to an authentic freedom. It's not to decide for them, but I think it's a very great challenge today that we have a way of guiding young people that respect their freedom and that enlighten their freedom. The Lineamenta, the preparatory document, choose a very wide approach of vocations. And I think the main topic when we speak about vocation is not to recruit in our communities. Of course, we are happy when some young people come in our community and become novice, but it's not the first point, you know. The first point is to help all the young people we know, all the young people we reach, to discover their way to love people. And to help them to put some choices. When we are vocation promoter, we have to work for the universal church, and we have to work for the growth of each young people, and not only or not first to have some young people in our communities. And I am happy if I accompany a girl who will choose another congregation or who will become married if it is her vocation. I want to show you now some words taken from the preparatory document to try to explain us this liquid society and the youth culture, that is the way young people are growing now. You know very well they are a connected generation. So if we want to speak with young people, we must learn those digital languages. It's a question of enculturation. If my community send me in China, I have to learn China. If I am a university chaplain, I have to learn student languages. So young people in today's world, it's very important to have that in mind. They are living in a rapidly changing world, a liquid society. They are living in a kind of fluidity, and for them the future is very uncertain. So they are in a state of vulnerability because it's very difficult to plan for the future. We don't know what the world will be in 10 years, 20 years, and it's the same for our church and for our community. They also live in a multicultural and multi-religious world, so that put challenges and opportunities, but it's also a new way to be a Catholic when most of your friends are from other religions or don't have a religion. So what is very important for us when we try to accompany young people is to be aware that they need for person of reference, they need parents, adults, educators who can be credible, but they also, today, the young people give more importance to their peers, to their friends, and so we can't imagine to evangelize youth without the youth. And I think that also in our community we have vocation pastoral care with the youngest member of our community, and also the young tells us how to deal with other youth. So we have to look at the young as being dynamic elements in society transformation. I just want to finish this part with 3 images to help you to understand better the youth culture and the way they are living. What is very important for us is the personal relationship. And I think that Brother Paul knows that when he's, and you can hear from that in a different survey from the United States. What is very important for young people when they want to enter a community is the quality of sisterhood or brotherhood and the interpersonal relationships. They don't want just to be in a group, but you know, a network is a way to be in contact with individuals and with people, and not only to be part of a collective group. Another image I give you is the mosaic. That means young people today, they build their identity as a mosaic. They experiment, they experiment different experiences. One day they will do something, another day they will do another thing. They will go to World Youth Day, to big events. They don't. They need to. They need concrete experiences, and so that's very important for us. I think nowadays they discern in and through concrete experiences, not only in an office to talk about something. Well, of course, they need to reflect on their experience, but we have to develop new ways of trainings, new ways of formation through action, and to consider young people as a whole person, not only a brain, but also they have an affectivity. They need to do concrete actions, and they discover who they are as a piece of mosaic, you know, with many different colors. The third image is the sea to express this liquid society. They sell on their screen and on internet as they sell in the world. Now they are more and more mobile, and they live in a country, they study in another one, they can, through internet, they can discover many things. So they are in this, in the movement, in the move, you know. So I think I will stop here because it's my first part is finished.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. We have already 2 questions that I will read soon. I want just to say to the participants that we will send both PowerPoints, so don't worry about that. You are asking me in the chat. And we are also recording the webinar, so tomorrow morning it will be on our YouTube channel. I'm reading both questions and you can start answering, Nathalie, and then Paul again. Paul, do you have any information about the reality in South America? Second question. Hi, Nathalie, Paul, and Florence. I like the idea of synodality. However, there is a real divide between diocesan and religious invocations accompaniment. One easily disregards the other. The atmosphere can become almost competitive. How can this be overcome? How can we truly work collaboratively? Thank you, Alan. So, to you, Nathalie, just Nathalie.
Paul, you can begin, and you can begin. I will speak after.
Sure. Well, just quickly, we did not survey the religious in South America. We only did the United States. But what we did find, the ethnic breakdown of our younger religious, we had 21% who self-identified themselves as being Hispanic. and we had 14% who self-identified themselves as being Asian. So they were part of the whole mix of the 1,600 newer religious that we accepted their surveys. In regards to the relationship between religious and diocesan priest, I'm hoping the Synod could address this by addressing it by building a culture of vocation, where we can respect one another's vocation and respect those who are discerning. For instance, if someone clearly has a vocation to diocesan priesthood, it would be unjust for me to force them into religious life because it just does not fit and it is not of God. So I'm hoping that understanding would diminish some of that competition. Sister Nathalie, I don't know if you have something to say about that.
Well, I can say that the situation is rather different depending on the countries and the bishop conference. In France, we are rather lucky because there are good relationships between bishops, many diocesan priests, and consecrated life. So now I am working for the bishop conference, and as director of this National Service for Youth Evangelization and for Vocation, my vice director is a diocesan priest. And we try to have a very good collaboration, and I think for Vocation, the main point is that we as sisters, we are not only concerned about consecrated life vocations, you know. I am very concerned, and I have to promote vocations for diocesan priests. And my colleague, Father Didier, is also involved in vocation pastoral care for sisters. So our motto here is that everybody has to promote all vocations. You know, sisters don't have to focus only on vocation for consecrated life. And if we as sisters, we are really ready to accompany young people for every holy path, because the main point is to help young people to hear to the call of Christ and to find their place in the society and in the church. It's a way to describe vocation. So we have to be very, very free. I was telling that I am not working for my chaplain or my community. Well, of course, I am a Xavier sister. I live in our novitiate, and I am happy to be with young novice. But, you know, I am also very happy if others choose another path. And I think both have to change, diocesan priests, bishops, and we have to dialogue a lot and to discuss a lot with them. You know, in my mission, I meet a lot of diocesan priests, a lot of bishops. I try to understand them, to understand their vocation, their preoccupations, their worries. And I also work a lot with our major superior conference and to be aware of the problems of community and their desire. And we have to help for the go-between. And I hope we have to help to understand, to have a good vision of vocation and a very a communion ecclesiology. And sister has to progress, and diocesan priest also, and also laity. So it's a systemic. And the last word is that my deep understanding of vocation, if we want to help each vocation, we have to care for all vocations.
Okay, thank you very much. We have some other questions that I would like to ask you, Paul and Nathalie. Just a second, I'm trying to Oh, mamma mia, how many? In this liquid society, how do the youth see the vows, a permanent commitment? And another one, how can parishes develop an active vocation culture? So again, to you, Paul and Nathalie.
Well, I can begin about those, and after that, Paul can speak. Nowadays, in this very rapidly changing world, as the future is unknown, with a lot of we live in this uncertainty. It's rather difficult to have a long-term commitment and to choose something for life. But it's possible. It is possible if you are very, very deeply rooted in Christ and in faith. So the way we have to do for young people is to develop progressive commitments. I think it's not possible from the life of a young today at university just in 1 year to put a definitive commitment. But we have to try to develop some progressive commitments so that they can experience what benefit commitments could give, and to experience that it gives you joy to serve the other and to commit. And at one day, they can be ready to go further. But it's a progressive process. And in the preparatory document, in the second part, there is a long explanation of what is discernment. It's a process. It takes time. And maybe today, it takes longer for young to go to definitive commitments. But I think they need to, it's an adventure, and we have to help them to be very, very deeply rooted in Christ and in faith to put this decision, to take this decision.
And if I just may address quickly the question of building a vocation culture within the parish, definitely we need to work with our families, we need to work with our parents, because I think they are valuable resources in promoting this culture of vocation. If you go to the NRVC website that I gave you a couple of years ago, we also did a study in anticipation of the Synod on the family on vocations and the impact of families in bringing about vocations. And some of the things that we found is that families need to pray with their children, parents need to pray with their children, they need to talk about the idea of God's will in their life and praying to understand what God's will is. They need to invite their children to think of a vocation, as well as to expose them to priest and religious, if at all possible. There's a full, the full study is on the NRVC website. I would encourage you to look at the executive summary. There's much more there, but I know that we are limited in time.
Thank you very much. We have other questions, but my suggestion, if it's okay for you, Paul and Nathalie, is to give you 10 minutes more to both of you to end your presentation, and then we have time for more questions if you are so patient to wait, okay? So Paul, it's up to you.
Sure. I will just go through the final part of the presentation, which is the best practices from the what we had gleaned from our study and identified as best practices for vocation ministry. If Sister Florence can put the PowerPoint up, please.
You have a special assistant, huh? You're very lucky.
I'm going to talk about technology, but I'm not good at technology at all. This one, okay. All right. And if we were to look at the best practices in vocation ministry, one of the first things would be about being proactive about vocations within your religious congregation. Could you just take that out over here? About appointing, and this isn't rocket science, but it's important to have a vocation director or a team, and I will talk about that in a minute. But at some point, we had found within communities that are attracting vocations, at some point, either within a chapter or just simply through the belief and the vision of the major superior, at some point the congregation made a concerted effort to do something about vocations. And they did not just put nice words in documents, that rather they backed that up with personnel, they invested resources, and they began to educate the community about contemporary vocation ministry. You know, prior to Vatican II, I do believe within our religious congregations, we had this culture of vocation. And we were trained to go out and invite others to be a part of us. And then after Vatican II, in the age of the laity, we kind of internalized this value that, well, now it's up to the laity to take their proper role within the church. And it's true, that was important. But at the same time, those in consecrated life also have an important role in the church to play. And I think for some of us, we kind of fell into the trap that if we were to promote our life, it would be somewhat against what Vatican II was saying, or it was rather conservative. It was a conservative approach. So we took a back seat to vocation ministry, but now we cannot afford that. But again, a best practice is being proactive about vocations, and this is what we had found within those religious congregations that are attracting. And it's creating a culture of vocations. We've already spoken about that with the parish, but a culture of vocations within the congregation, which is that a future is possible. It may be smaller, it may be different, but if we believe in our that our charism is a gift to the church, and we want to continue that charism because it only enriches the church and the people of God. And you create this culture by working with leadership, working with membership, communications, development people, that there is a community that prays for vocations and communicates about vocations. Even if the major superior were to speak, every time he or she were to speak, he or she would talk at some point about the future of the congregation and the people who have the possibility of joining us. Keeping membership informed about the vocation activities. The vocation ministry is an internal ministry, but we all have, we are all curious about what is taking place in vocation ministry within the congregation. So to communicate about that and to communicate about that on a regular basis, inviting people to prayer, inviting people to do something for vocations. A third is to appoint a vocation director and or a team. You know, if we all say that we're all vocation directors, the reality is that nobody becomes the vocation director. I was a former high school principal, and if I were within a school that is facing dwindling enrollment, the last thing I'm going to do is to cut my recruitment officer to part-time or to do away with my recruitment officer. It's there that I'm going to place my resources and my efforts to get out there and to start talking up my school. It would be the same thing for my congregation. What we had found is that the vocation director plays a significant role in the discernment for someone who is coming to religious life. That sense that there is a high, well, what we also found is that there is a high correlation between a full-time vocation director and the community that is receiving newer members. Oftentimes leadership could get bogged down with personnel and issues regarding healthcare and aging, but we also must give equal time to the future. The use of media for vocation promotion. I cannot emphasize this enough, but a website is extremely important if you don't have one already, because the internet does have a strong impact. We had found that those who come to religious life did their homework. You can learn about a religious community in a very safe way by reading about them on the web. And for many, the web is their first introduction to religious life. In the United States, we have the Vocation match, where you fill out an online questionnaire and up you push enter, and then up will pop about 10 to 15 communities that share some of your common characteristics that you're looking for. There's YouTube channels, there's Facebook, there's social media. However, if I would recommend that if you're going to do social media, do one or two things and do it well. You don't need to do everything. However, a website is extremely important. I would recommend that you test your website with a target audience. Always be honest with folks about your congregation, because they are going to ask questions. And the other thing is that, remember, the website is only a portal to the congregation. At some point, you need to have a face-to-face meeting with prospective candidates. You can communicate online, but there is no substitute for face-to-face communication. Discernment programs, anything that puts people in contact with young people, in contact with members of your congregation, where they can work with them in a mission trip, where they can pray with them, come and see retreats in mission programs would be important. One of the other things is connecting the dots for them, especially if they're doing mission trips, and they pray together and there's theological reflection in the evening. You need to connect the dots for them about the possibility of a religious vocation. In other words, that religious do this all the time, and that they too can do that as well. Targeting age groups. We need to go where the young people are. 50% of the women first thought of religious life before they were 18 years old. That 40% of men thought of religious life before they were 18 years old. Generally speaking, working with college age and young adult groups, they're the ones who would be looking at life choices. But I would also recommend that it is in high school that you can plant the seed of a vocation, even as far back as primary school. But we need to go where young people are. This past summer in Krakow at World Youth Day, NRBC hosted a vocation cafe where religious were just simply available to sit with young people and to talk about with whatever was on their mind. It was a ministry of presence, because many young people have never even spoken to a religious before. I cannot tell you how successful that was. We had sometimes people waiting in line to talk to someone. But again, we have to go where they are. We cannot sit at home thinking they're going to be knocking on our doors because they don't know where we are. So those would be the 6 best practices. And I'm sorry I'm rushed, and I'm also sorry I only have pictures of women, because I didn't know men were going to be part of this webinar. I thought it was just going to be women. But if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm giving the possibility to Nathalie to continue her presentation in PowerPoint.
Perfect.
We have a few questions, but I will ask just later. So you can continue, Nathalie. Thank you.
Okay, you see my screen?
Yes.
I do, but
Okay. So I will continue with the second part of the preparatory document for the synod. It's about faith, discernment, and vocation. And there is a very interesting part about discernment. And I know I have read your expectation for this webinar, and that many of you are interested in discernment. So we always have to remember that when we speak about vocation, the first thing is that there is a human vocation, a vocation for life and a vocation for love, and everybody has a vocation. A second way to understand vocation is to understand vocation as the vocation to be baptized, to be Christian, and to be a disciple and a missionary. And the third way is it's a way of life, and it's a specific vocation, as to be married, or to be a priest, or to be a sister. And the fourth way, when we speak about vocation, is to speak about your work. To be a doctor, to be a teacher. And so you know, when we speak about vocation, it's important to have all those kind of levels. And in the center of our accompaniment and of the process of discernment, it is the place of conscience and freedom. So we can help, we can guide young people, but the young people has the answer. And we can't decide for them, but we have to help them to take choices and to choose. And it's very
Nathalie?
very difficult today to make a mistake, you know. And so we have to help young people to discover that discernment is a process, and it's difficult for them because they live in the present. They live in a very quick world, and with internet, social media, they give a lot of importance of what they feel in the present, and we have to help them to discover time as a kind of long process. So discernment is a gift. And maybe the best gift we can give those generations is key for discerning. And so we have to help them to recognize what they feel, how God speaks to them. And it's difficult because they live in a very scientific way of mind, and their first language at school in our society, it is a scientific language, and they think that 1 + 1, the result is 2. But you know, this discernment is not like computer. It's not mathematics. And so we have to help them to understand what they feel and what happened in their spiritual life, so that they can choose in the best way, and to give them some keys for discernment. So discernment is a process that takes time, that follows the steps, and as we have to help them to recognize the grammar of life. That means that life is received, and you can commit yourself if you discover that everything is a gift. Life is a gift, faith is a gift, and if you discover your life as a gift, then you want to give it to others, to give it to the church, to give it to serve. So that's why when we accompany young people, we discover that today it's very important for them, and many young people, they like to serve poor people or to be volunteer. There was a question before, I think it was from Sister Silvana, about the concern from young people who are concerned about our planet, our environment, a lot of suffering. I like this definition of vocation from an American theologian, Bushner. He says, you know, your vocation is the place where your deepest desire meet and answer the suffering and the cry of the world. So you can discover your vocation through prayer, through listening the word of God, but also through listening others, through listening the needs and the pain of people on our earth. And when we accompany young people, so we have to help them to listen to God through other people and also through prayer, through the liturgy and through the word of God. And to help them to recognize that every human earth is divided, and you have to try to recognize what is coming from God and what is coming from the opposite of God that don't want you to live and to love. So as I like to speak with images, I will give you this new image. Maybe you know this these paintings. It is in Rome in the French church Saint-Louis des Français from Caravaggio. It is the call of Matthew. And when we look at this painting, we can see the hand of Jesus Christ. It's like the hand of God and the light. And in this way, you can see Matthew, who was a sinner. And we can understand that discernment is going to the light, and it's like a new creation. If you look at this painting, you can understand that this hand is almost the same as the hand in the Sixtine Chapel, you know, the hand of God and the hand of Adam. So it can help us to understand the process of discernment as a process to enter into a new creation and to enter in life, to enter in the light. And it's a very interesting parallel between the hand of God and the hand of Adam. So, you know, this hand is giving us the look, the attitude for us to accompany person. It's not an hand to take the young people, but to give them the direction of the life. It is a look of discernment which accompanies people without taking over their conscience and without pretending to control the grace of God, but an hand that show where is the grace of God. And I think it's very important in our way to accompany a young person to serve their freedom and to serve the discerning of their call. I like also this picture that explain me what is the process of accompanying young people and the process of discernment. If you look at this mosaic, it is in the Redemptoris Mater Chapel inside the Vatican. It is made by Father Rupnik, a Jesuit. And you can see Moïse across the Red Sea. And Moïse has two hands, you know. And the first one show the promised land. show the land for life, for love, shows the land with God. And the second one, so this is the first one, the second one, try to put out the Red Sea. The Red Sea, that is the symbol of death, the symbol of everything that is against life. And the problem is sometimes when we are with young people, we change the end and we criticize many things. We tell them, be careful, you know. We put the second end in the first place. And I think this image can help us to accompany young people in the way God accompanies people, in the way Jesus Christ is doing. And this, we have to have those two ends when we try to accompany young people. So my last word will be about when Pope Francis addressed many participants who were at the International Conference on Pastoral Work for Vocation last October. I was in this Congress, and Pope Francis tells us vocation pastoral, it is not, the first thing is, it is not an office. It is not only to organize something. Vocational pastoral ministry is learning the style of Jesus, who passes through the places of daily life, stops without being hurried, and looking at our brothers with mercy, leads them to encounter God the Father. So we have to go out to listen to young people, and it takes patience to help them understand the movements of their heart and guide their steps. So Brother Paul says that it's very important to walk with them, so to go out to see them like Jesus look at Matthew, and to call them, also to tell them, you know, there are different vocations in the church and you can choose. So it's not only a way, of course there are many best practices, and Brother Paul gives us best practices, and it's important to develop and to organize vocation ministries. But the first thing, it is a journey which sometimes includes unpredictable paths and uncustomary places which are far removed from ecclesial community. So it is the creativity of the Holy Spirit that must help us to develop our pastoral activities, and especially in vocation ministry. So I will stop here because I think it's time.
Thank you very much, Nathalie and Peter and Paul. Of course, you know, people are writing on our chat. They are really appreciating your sharing because it comes from the experience. So thank you very much. But I would like to ask you, if you can, Paul and Nathalie, just to stay 10 minutes more. And if people can have to leave, please feel free to do it. But I think it's worth it to answer some questions because they are very important. Can you stay more, Paul and Nathalie?
Yes, okay.
Paul, I can't hear you. You have to unmute your...
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I can't, I have to, no more than 10 minutes. I have community night tonight.
Okay, don't worry. You can leave, you know, but I think it's worth it to have, you know, some answers to people. So I will just read some questions. Some are very long, so it's very hard to answer to all, but I want to respect also the priorities. Have you perceived any effect, and if so, what, on young people, discerners of the pain and turmoil the world is in? Instability, growing gap between rich and poor, fundamentalism, polarization. Are you seeing young people beginning to consider religious life as a response to the world's pain? First question. Second, this insight of learning to sail on the sea is powerful, but how to be with young people sailing in the same sea? It would mean to abandon some of our certainties or to sail with more trust in the providence rather than in structures, works, and deeds. This is the second question. Just another one. How do we develop vocation directors to see and believe that their ministry is mainly one of the evangelization and not just encouraging people to enter religious life? Okay, we have other questions, but I think I will stop here and will ask you in 5 minutes just to share some thoughts. Paul, you can start so you can leave.
All right. I think when you're looking at, say, I think the word that was used was the pain that the world is in. That becomes one, I don't know if that's like the issue, but it probably does become one issue that prompts a search for God in their life. When you look at this rise of violence, the terrorism, the disregard for human life, you do begin to question, where is God in all of this? And I think our world condition can bring to the surface one's own personal search for spirituality. Whether or not that will lead to a vocation is really not the issue. But the point is that we need to accompany young people in their search for God. And if this is a gift that I think that we as religious can certainly bring to young people, is our own personal experience of how to pray. How do we see God in the midst of the turmoil? It's carrying the cross and walking the road of Calvary, but believing that the resurrection is at the end of that road. How do we communicate that message, support them in their own search? And I agree that because that becomes the evangelization that Sister Nathalie was talking about. There is this sometimes question about the vocation director as being the recruiter, as they need to go out there and bring people into the community. And that's only one aspect of vocation ministry. But just from my own experience of being a vocation director, every time I met with an individual, you're meeting with this child of God who has this very unique experience of God in their life. And there was something at some point in his or her life that prompted them to contact the vocation director. And the challenge that I always try to get to, or the question that I always try to get to was, what prompted you to call me or to write me? What was it in your own faith journey that brought you to this point in your life of speaking with a vocation director? Is it simply to further explore this question of God? Is it simply to see how you can be of greater service within the church? Or are you looking for about commitment within? And these are the questions that I think vocation directors need to ask. And it is true that we do need to let go of some of our securities. We need to realize that young people are not like us, and that their experience of the world has been very different, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's, I always say generations change, and generations are supposed to change, and we don't need to be fearful of that. We need to embrace that, and we need to learn from them much like they need to learn from us as well.
Thank you very much, Paul. So feel free to leave. You have to reach your community. We don't want to be the cause of community conflict. Okay, thank you, Nathalie. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Paul. Well, the first thing I would like to share with you is that I had also a survey about youth vocation and consecrated life in France. I couldn't speak about it, but it will be in my PowerPoint you will receive. And we discover that for those new generation, the main way the main thing is what I call the mystic adventure. That means their gate for faith, their gate for vocation, their gate for religious life is personal relationship with God. So the importance of giving them the testimony that to be religious, it's an adventure, it's a human adventure, but also it's a mystical adventure, you know. So it's very important for them, but not only just, it's not only about God and me. This mystical adventure is also an adventure with others and for others. Brother Paul tells us that with so many difficult things in our world, they have a very, very spiritual thirst, and also there are many, many questions about the meaning of life. And so we must talk and we must find the word, not only a Christian word they don't understand, but the way. That's why I try to speak with images, because it speaks to young people. They have languages of images, video, and music, and we have to learn those languages to give them the spiritual, the treasure of the spiritual tradition, but in a new language. That's the challenge of inculturation. But I think we have many resources for that. But of course, you know, when you know that when you use your computer, you have to update things very often. And so nowadays we have to update our charisms. We don't have to lose the basic of our charism, but we have to find new ways to develop our religious charisms in this new culture and these new languages. And we don't know the way before, so we must be faithful. I don't know what will be the future of religious life, but I think it will change a lot. But I am not afraid, because when I hear the young, I know the gospel is here and the church will continue and there will be maybe new forms of consecrated life. But we have yes, we need to be confident. And the problem today is sometimes in religious life, we are too afraid about creativity. And the Holy Spirit developed creativity. So we need also to be creative, to innovate, to develop new ways of solidarities.
Thank you very much, Nathalie and Paul, not only for the content that you shared, but for the passion. I mean, I would enter in your community. I mean, if I so thank you very much. It was very inspiring. People are very happy. They are writing on our chat. So Nathalie, you can read the messages of people, and also you, Paul, but I will send it to you. So thank you to all participants. Some information before leaving. We are preparing our program of meetings and webinar, and we will send it to you all, so do not worry, you will receive it. But I want to just do it, it's just a brand new news. You will, in September 15, we will have a meeting in presence here in Rome with Sister Nathalie, because she will be here for a meeting to prepare the synod. So the meeting will be in English with translation into French. So you are very welcome. We will record it, so it's another tool that you will have in our YouTube channel. And in December 2, Nathalie will be again here in Rome, and we will have another meeting with her. It won't be always the same theme. The theme will be always the same, but the content will be different, because she will update us about the news about the preparation of the synod. And also we hope that Paul will be able to reach us in December in Rome. So thank you very much. Tomorrow you will receive a link for the evaluation of this webinar, the presentation, and the link for the video, so you can share it with your community throughout the world. I want just to tell you also that the website of the synod, that is, just a second, is at the moment is just in Italian, but it's youth synod 2018, and there is the questionnaire line that you can fill in online. So it's brand new, because I think it's today. Okay, thank you very much. It's here.
Thank you.
It's really well done. The website is really well done. So please visit it, read the document, because it's worth it. So thank you very much for all of you, for your patience for all the problem we had. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch again in the future.
Good night.
Goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.